Hello everyone, welcome to ixamBee. In today's video, I am going to discuss the paper 2 for general stream, all the 50 questions in detail, all of the 50 questions with 10, the 5 options and the correct solution and what the detailed answer should be. I will discuss all of this in detail today. This is of course a memory based paper, so the closest options that we were able to recreate for you all has been done for you. So first I will also analyze how the pattern of the exam has been so as to take learnings for our phase 2. So we have only completed the phase 1 of 2022 grade A SEBI exam. We still have to give the phase 2, and it is very important to take the learnings so as to plan and prepare ourselves for the more important phase 2 for SEBI Grade A 2022. So if we first look at the distribution of questions that came for paper 2 for the general stream, it was a very well distributed paper with all the 6 subjects being covered very well. Accounts and commerce, or commerce and accountancy as it is known as, there were 9 questions. Management, there were 8 questions. Finance, there were 10 questions. Costing, 9 questions. Companies at 8 questions. And economics, there were 6 questions that came. So all the 6 topics were very well covered. If we talk about the numericals, this was a little unexpected lines. There were no numericals from the accounts or the costing segment, which usually does have a numerical. However, there was one numerical which was from the economics topic of demand and supply. So that was the only numerical which of course we will discuss today in the session also. If you all will remember, I had released an expected pattern of questions for the general stream before the exam, and based on which we had also conducted a SEBI pre-board. I am very happy to announce that very near to the expected lines, and a lot of questions have actually also been come from the pre-board SEBI exam which we had conducted 1 week before the actual exam. So if we compare against the 8 questions that I was expecting from the commerce and accounts segment, 9 questions actually came. From management, I was expecting around 8 questions, and exactly 8 questions have come from the management segment. From finance, again 10 was expected, and yes, there were 10 questions. Costing, I was expecting 8, but there were 9 questions actually, and these questions was a little different from the topics that I was expecting, because mostly in the actual exam the questions have actually come from lean systems rather than the concepts of costing per se. When it comes to Companies Act, I was expecting 9 questions. There were 8 questions actually, and from economics I was expecting 7 questions, whereas we had 6 questions from the economics topic. So very close to our expectation. What I did miss was this numerical, the unexpected part. I was expecting 5 numericals from the accounts and costing topics. However, we had only 1 numerical from the economics topic. A detailed analysis I have also done of the various topics that I had expected to come. So I will discuss that in detail, but before I move on to that, the actual questions that have come in the exam, 44 of them were covered in ixamBee course in different formats of recorded videos, PDFs, the study notes which we have for the various topics. The live classes have been very useful for students. We have had so many students messages come in that the live classes and the last minute revision classes and the various revision questions, MCQs and notes that had been given, they have been very helpful. Whether these questions were, and especially the questions in the chapter test and section test, have been extremely useful, because these are based a lot on the conceptual type of questions, which has been very helpful for students here. So 44 questions have actually we've been able to locate that have come from ixamBee course in phase 1. If I compare the topics related to what I was expecting and what actually has been covered, in a lot of topics there has been a good amount of similarity. When it comes to accountancy, I was expecting some question from accounting principles. There was one question, however, that was not what I was mostly expecting. But when it comes to accounting standards, inventory and revenue was one that I said was important, and we did get one question from the accounting standard of revenue. PPE we did not get any questions, but yes, we did get questions from both the rights and the buyback related aspect. And financial statements, I had mentioned both the analysis and the preparation would be important. This topic has been covered, however, it was limited to the preparation aspect rather than the analysis. So financial statements, yes, has been covered, but one aspect of it, not both. When it came to management, I had highlighted roles and functions of management, leadership styles to be most important, and after that communication and HRD biases is what we could have added to our preparation. The questions have almost revolved around the roles, functions and leadership topics. So again, a very close similarity in what was expected and what actually was covered. In finance, I had said that basically focus on financial awareness only majorly, and also topics and concepts discussed in budget. So yes, the paper was mostly financial awareness. There were 2-3 questions related to conceptual understanding, like based on debentures, on derivatives, but they were very easy topics, nothing complicated in that. So financial awareness was the flavor for the finance topics, and the budget was covered actually in the GA part of paper 1. So very conceptual, simple conceptual questions. Finance mostly everybody has done correct. Costing was what did not really happen as per the expectation. I was expecting marginal costing to be covered well with key definitions. Yes, there were certain key definitions like for imputed cost and indirect costs that were indirectly asked. But the major focus for costing has been lean systems in paper 1, which was something that I was not expecting. So there is a deviation in this particular topic. When it comes to Companies Act, a lot of similarity. Again, prospectus is what was I expecting. Yes, we had questions on prospectus. Dividend, yes, we had dividend. Related to independent directors, we did had overall directors topic. And auditors, yes, we did have question from the auditors segment also. We had a little more questions from NCLT and all that. As I said, I will discuss in detail. However, what we were expecting, that was done. In economics, less similarity. I was expecting national income. We did get one question on that. One question on monetary policy also related we did get. However, there were questions on part A of economics or basic economic laws of microeconomics like LM curve, oligopoly. So that was covered, which in my expectation was less likely to be asked. So out of the 6 subjects, 4 went in our line of our expectation, while 2 were a little different, but the questions were very conceptual and direct and easy. As far as costing was concerned, in economics, yes, there was a little live classes, but not in as much detail as they were asked. When it came to numerical, as I already stated, numerical was something which was not as what we were expecting. So there has actually, frankly speaking, accounts and costing has not been covered from the point of view of numericals, and we should not forget that in phase 2. Phase 2, still there is a good chance that there can be numericals. Okay, so this is what has been the analysis, and now we have prepared the full memory based paper with detailed solutions of each and every question, which you can practice as a mock test or also read as a PDF. So you can download after this session today. You can download the full PDF for your reference for your preparation for phase 2. So let's now move on to discuss all the 50 questions that had come with their detailed solutions. So this is the paper that will be provided, and you will be able to download it as PDF, as I mentioned at the end of this session today from the description box. So the questions I have segregated topic wise. Let's look at first the questions from the commerce and accountancy subject. The first question related to the intangible asset. Which of the following are an intangible asset? So intangible assets are basically those assets which the company owns but they do not have a physical form. However, they do add value, they do help in earning revenue for the organization, for the company. So which of them is an intangible asset? The various options that were there were railway sidings, leasehold property, mining rights, plant and machinery, and there was one more option, but here we have taken none of the above. So basically railway sidings is something which you can physically see. Similarly, leasehold land or plant and machinery. Mining rights are something which are very important. It is an asset, however you cannot physically see it. It is a right. It is that is being given to you to be able to mine a certain land, to take out minerals from it. Okay, so so this question basically relates to the preparation of financial statements, where under schedule 3 they have mentioned what all is included in different types of assets, right? So intangible assets actually include goodwill, brands, computer software. Okay, so the computers will be a tangible asset, but the computer software will be an intangible asset. Okay, then mastheads and publishing titles, mining rights, copyrights, patents, intellectual property rights, recipes, models, designs, prototypes, licenses. These are some of the examples which have been given in the schedule 3. If we want to look at the coverage from ixamBee, this was very well covered in the notes for the preparation of accounts. What are intangible assets and what are the examples, including mining rights. We also had a similar kind of question that was asked in our section test on accounts, where patents was mentioned and you had to identify which type of an asset it is. So a good thorough practice and use of the course would have easily helped you to identify this answer. Next question related to what did Ind AS 18 relate to? So our syllabus mentioned actually just accounting standards. It has been silent about whether we are talking about the accounting standards AS or Ind AS. We are in a transitory phase, so my suggestion to students had been that they focus on the concept, because even under AS and Ind AS, especially the ones that have been mentioned in our syllabus, have seen relatively less change in the concepts related to these particular accounting standards. So focus on that and also know the list of what particular Ind AS or AS relates to. So that is more important for you to remember. So if you had covered that very easily, you will be able to know that Ind AS 18 relates to revenue recognition, and actually they under this they identify 3 types of revenue: one from the sales of goods, the other from the rendering of services, and third is from use of certain assets, which leads to interests or royalties, right? So this was there. So hire purchase, insurance, leases, all these are covered under separate accounting standards. So royalties was the correct answer here. Again, a snapshot for the study notes. Very easily it has been written what Ind AS covers: sale of goods, rendering of services, and royalties, dividends, and interests. Moving to the next question, when a rights issue comes, so the shareholder who has been given the rights to apply to those rights issue, he can actually choose not to apply and transfer that right to somebody else. Then what do we call that particular process, or the transfer of your right to somebody else? Okay, whether it's known as transfer of right, renunciation, rejection, transmission, or non-exercise. The correct answer is renunciation of the right. You renunciate your right in favor of somebody else. So these were actually discussed in our classes when we talk about rights issue, the actual process, how it takes place, what are the form that's to that the shareholders are sent. They are given a choice either to apply or to renunciate in favor of somebody else. So that kind of discussions we have done in class. So all those students who had been regularly attending class have found this question to be easily being able to attempt. There was a question on the accounting information that which of the following is not a qualitative characteristic of accounting information. So actually accounting information has 6 kind of qualitative characteristics. One is your relevance, then it is reliability, understandability. So accountability is not one of the qualitative characteristics. The 6 qualitative characteristics, in addition to relevance, reliability, comparability, understandability, also includes verifiability and timeliness. What we mean by qualitative characteristics is what we expect from the accounting information that is being prepared, right? The various financial statements, the various accounting books that are kept, what is expected from them. So one, it is they should be presenting relevant and helpful information. Then when we are saying reliability, it is also known as representational faithfulness, by which we mean that the information should be accurate. Verifiability means that the information, that it is reproducible given the same set of data and assumptions. And timeliness, it should be quickly available so that you can use it as and when required, not that last year's financial statements are available after 2 years, then they are not very relevant. Understandability is easily understood by anybody looking at those statements. And comparability, so that you're following the same standards, so that you can compare the performance from one period to the other. So these are the qualitative characteristics of accounting information. Which of the following statement related to the buyback of shares is incorrect? So there were 5 statements that were given to the buyback. Some related to how much buyback is allowed, for which you had to take board's decision. What is the ratio of the debt and equity after the buyback that should be there, that is 2:1. And then there was one statement related to whether buyback of share is allowed out of the fresh issue of equity shares of that class. So that is not a correct statement, because for buyback you can use your free reserve, securities premium, or proceeds of any other shares. Plus they are also not allowed from an issue of fresh shares of the similar. Which of the following of second-hand machinery, cost for improving material efficiency, replacement cost of spare parts, and expenses to reduce working machinery to bring it in the working condition, overhauling cost that is included, is considered as a capital expenditure and not a revenue expenditure? Okay, so this was clearly discussed in various live class discussions related to accounts that we have regularly. Next question, which of the following is not an exceptional item in the profit and loss account? Again, a question from the preparation of financial statements, where what is considered as exceptional item and what are considered as extraordinary items are clearly mentioned. So the options were write-off of preliminary expenses, abnormal loss on long-term contract, amount received in settlement of insurance claims, sale of investment in subsidiary and associate, and profit and loss from disposal of fixed assets. So all of these except the sale of investment in subsidiary and associate is an exceptional item. This is an extraordinary item. Okay, so the accounting statements makes a difference between an extraordinary item and an exceptional item. Extraordinary items are actually incomes which do not recur on a regular basis. So both of them don't relate to the operational activities of a company. However, extraordinary items are the ones which do not recur or are unlikely to be repeated again, right? So once you are selling, sale of an investment in a subsidiary and an associated company is a unlikely event to happen again and again for a company. So it's an extraordinary item. However, sale or the profit and loss from the sale of a fixed asset is relatively more likely to recur, because a company may have various assets and they may keep changing them and buying and selling them, right? So that is considered as an exceptional item, while sale of an investment in a subsidiary is considered as a extraordinary item. Even a sale of a long-term investment will be considered as an exceptional item. So here the key word is basically investment in subsidiary and associated company. Okay. A similar type of question we had actually covered in our practice questions on accounts, where one of the other exceptional item, which is a settlement of a litigation, was mentioned, and you had to identify. The correct answer was an exceptional expense. And in the detailed solution, as always, we gave the meaning of exceptional item and the difference of it with the extraordinary items. So a good understanding, a good study of the mock test and the various chapter tests and MCQs would have helped you to get good conceptual clarity on this particular point. Next question was related to in case of a bill which is falling due after the closing date of accounts, then the interest which has accrued but not fallen due, what happens to it if you are writing it in the account current? Basically this is indicated in red ink to specify that this has accrued but not fallen due, and because of the fact that red ink is used, it is sometimes also referred as to red ink interest. So this question, you can say this was something which was very less expected. We didn't really cover it per se. So one question you can say from the peripheral topics that had come in the accounts segment. Moving to the next question related to the committed cost. Which of the following is a committed cost? Now again, this question has come from the preparation of financial statements. So a lot of questions actually came from this aspect. As I was saying, that preparation of financial statements and analysis of financial statements, preparation of financial statements has especially got a lot of importance in the accounting segment. So here also, under the schedule 3, it is mentioned what all is included in the off balance sheet notes that are given to the financial statement. So in the notes to accounts, you are talking about the contingent liabilities and also commitments from the company side. So one of the aspect which is considered in the commitments is the uncalled liability on the shares which are partly paid. Claims against company which are not acknowledged as debt is a contingent liability. Similarly, guarantees is a contingent liability, while dividends declared is actually a liability. If you will remember, a provision for dividend is made very clearly, where it was mentioned what are contingent liabilities, what are commitments. So here you can see that uncalled liabilities on shares partly paid is actually a commitment from the company's end. Now moving on to the next segment. So we can see there were 9 questions in total from the accounts segment. Now moving to the management segment. In management, in management, let's look at the first question that was there, which related to transactional leadership. So transactional leadership is a very important leadership style that we talk about in leadership when we are studying, which relates to rewards and punishment, which is used, in which the leader and the subordinate work like a transaction between them. What is the other name that is used for describing? So the correct answer here is managerial leadership. So transactional leadership is actually also known as managerial leadership because it focuses on the role of supervision, organization and group performance, and they implement this style with focus on the task and use of rewards and punishment to motivate the followers. This was again very well covered in the notes. If the students had read them properly, we had made a summary of all the leadership styles, where the transactional leadership and what is also known as was mentioned as the managerial leadership style. Moving on to the next question, which of them is the closest to the directing function of management? So the directing function, there are 5 functions. We start with planning, then organizing, then staffing, then directing, and then controlling. So these are the major 5 functions of management. So directing function is related to what? A good reading of directing function would know that here the efforts of subordinates are directed towards the accomplishment of goal. So it involves 4 aspects. It is supervision, it involves leadership, it involves communication, and it involves motivation, right? So here we were very clearly given supervision. So if this was well understood, the 4 aspects that are covered under directing this question was very easy. Again, something very clearly covered. Directing function includes supervision, motivation, leadership, communication. A direct question from the notes if students had studied it well. This was a little complicated or twisted question that was asked in relation to what the top management, when which HRD principle are we referring to when the top management is defining the distribution of authorities and responsibilities to the subordinates, so that a cohesive and congenial environment could be developed in an organization. Now, many students have mentioned this as maximization of employee potential. However, in management, I always keep telling when I am teaching management that look for certain key words. We should not focus on what has been, why is it so confusing, we have not read this word, because management is a very subjective topic, right? One thing, and there are various ways of looking at, so we should always try to look at keywords. And here I think the keyword was a good distribution of authority with responsibility. This is giving me the biggest clue, which makes me look at this delegation as the correct answer rather than maximization of employee potential. Many of the students have gone with this topic, with this answer, keeping in mind that they are talking about a cohesive and congenial environment. But understand that the importance of delegation in an organization is also smooth functioning, because if everything is done by the top management and they do not delegate work, a big organization cannot be run with only few people. So we have to have delegation done, but there should be certain principles that should be followed for delegation to make it effective, which means giving authority with responsibility. So there should be an equity and parity created between that. There should be a principle of absolute responsibility that should be established, so that it's not only authority that is given but also responsibility. So this you can read in detail. We have done a lot of discussion about the function of delegation and the importance of delegation in our management classes. So this is a very well discussed topic in detail. So those keywords were good enough to indicate that we should go with delegation. The questions related to roles of manager, if we move ahead, they were different from what we talk about the 10 roles of manager which are given by Mintzberg. So these are the most common 10 roles of a manager which are commonly taught. However, 2 questions were asked related to roles. However, both of them did not directly relate to this. But if we look at and if we understand what Mintzberg is talking about in those 10 roles, I think that could have been used to give you a clue what should have been the correct answer. So if we go by the first question related to roles of a manager, it was saying something like that the manager is communicating within also and outside the organization to maintain healthy relationship both within and outside the organization. So which role is he playing? A lot of students have gone with the term communicator. In my opinion, actually the answer should be networker. Why I say that is because look at the words that are being used. You are maintaining healthy relationship both within and outside the organization, and this is the key word that I am looking at, which is reflecting interpersonal role. Okay, and if we are talking about interpersonal role and try to relate it to the Mintzberg concept, in Mintzberg Mintzberg clearly says that the roles can be interpersonal in nature, informational in nature, or decisional in nature. Many of the students have gone with communicator thinking it is an informational role because we are communicating some information. However, I will also draw your attention to maintaining. Why are we doing that? It is said that he is doing this to maintain healthy relationship, which is akin to listening role. And if I'm talking about the listening role, the closest word to listening is networking, and therefore I think the correct answer here should be networker and not communicator. And this kind of roles, we have done case studies based type of discussions in our classes to understand different types of roles, and I hope the students have got good conceptual clarity related to that. Another question related to roles was when you are bringing together man, machine and material and creating a favorable environment so that employees can contribute to their best for the achievement of organizational goals. What are the roles that is being played here? So the options given were enabling, synergy, balancing, linking and creating. And the closest that I could think, and students have also mentioned, is enabling role, because here the manager is helping bring together all the various kind of resources, and therefore he is enabling, he's becoming an enabler in which this environment the employees bring out their best. So that looks like the closest option, which is more like a decisional role that the manager is playing in this case, if I relate it to the Mintzberg roles. Another question moving on was related to the communication model. Not the common words were used here. Again, in the various communication model, the general words that we use are sender, then encoding the message, then using a medium, then decoding, and receiver, and then we have the feedback. So these are the general process or the communication model that is talked about, but here they have not used that. However, what was mentioned is that the communication model is in which very easy and less technical jargons or easy jargons are being used before the communication for the smooth flow of communication is being done, right? So now, if I look at the options, identifying the target audience is one that is not fitting here in any of these. Pre-testing or developing of message is related to encoding. Decoding is actually already mentioned. Choosing a correct channel is relating to the medium channel, and then creating a feedback loop. So what is happening before the communication, and all this happens after the communication. So the only option that is happening before the communication is identifying the target audience, and that should be the correct answer in my opinion in this particular case. So again, we keep doing a lot of discussion, case-based study types of discussions in detail with students in these classes to give this conceptual clarity. And I'm repeating again, in management, when we are studying, we should open our mind and try to think logically to arrive at an answer. The options may always look close, so practice is the most important way. Rather than trying to cover a lot of breadth of topics, practice and discuss and do case studies to understand this topic in detail and use logic. Management is all about logic. Then moving on to the next question, which of the following will result from high morale in an organization? So high morale is when you have a very good feeling about the environment, about the organization, about the people around you in a group, standing in a group kind of a situation. That is when we are talking about high morale in an organization. So again, this was, I think, very logical. If we look at intergroup conflict cannot give you high morale, right? High morale is when you have a good feeling about the organization, about the working conditions, about the environment. So if there is intergroup conflict, you will not feel good, right? So it will not lead to high morale. Delay in decision making will again reduce morale. It will not help you increase it. Timely resolution of conflicts. Okay, if any conflicts are coming and they are very timely resolved, of course you will feel good about, okay, this is the right place I am working in. Defying hierarchy. If you are defying hierarchy and people below you are not following the hierarchy, it will not lead to high morale. So given all these options, even if you did not know and had not read, just logically thinking what will boost your energy, what will boost a good feeling about your organization in from the given options, so that will you will logically arrive at that is timely resolution of conflicts. Again, something which we have discussed in class and also directly covered in our notes. Immediate conflict identification and resolution will lead to high morale. To the leadership styles, a less talked about leadership styles have been discussed here, where leader is considered genuine and honest and cares for the employees' opinion. Now here again the elimination technique could have been used to arrive at the best possible answer. Participative, we know, is the democratic style. So in a democratic style, the focus is more on participation from the team members rather than on the genuineness or honesty of the leader. So that is what something we can rule out. A supportive style of leadership will be where you trust the employees and support them, and you have more consideration, you have more relationship orientation. So here again we are talking from the leader's point of view rather than from the employee's point of view, right? So that is again ruled out. Paternalistic again would focus more on the employees, where you are more of a fatherly or a parental type of a leader focusing on the employees. So here a little confusion could have come from the cares for the employees, but again, because we are also talking about genuineness and honesty of the leader, this is relatively a less likely option. So from these two options, authentic leadership style. Next segment is related to finance. In finance, a lot of awareness questions, topics which were not directly given in syllabus, but we have them discussed them. NBFC was one topic which is not directly mentioned, but given the importance of the NBFC sector, both for RBI and for SEBI, this is a topic which we have been discussing and even providing material in our course. NBFCs can accept deposits from the public for a maximum period of what? This is a very direct question. 60 months. So NBFCs can establish only if they are deposit taking NBFCs given registration with RBI. They are allowed with a minimum period of 12 months and a maximum period of 60 months. There are other conditions they have to follow. That is, they should not be repayable on demand. So only public term deposits can be raised by NBFCs. They should have an investment grade rating to be able to raise. Plus the public deposits are limited to 1.5 times of the net worth funds of the NBFC. So these are the rules mandated by RBI, which are again well covered by us in our notes and discussed in the classes on NBFCs. There was another question on NBFCs where 5 statements were given and you had to identify the incorrect one. The statements related to the minimum net own funds that the NBFCs have to give, whether they can accept deposits from NRIs or not, whether they have to maintain CRR and SLR or not, or whether their deposits are covered by deposit insurance under DICGC. So that is the incorrect statement. NBFC deposits are not covered by DICGC. The DICGC gives cover for only bank deposits up to 5 lakh, and this will be resolved within 90 days moratorium as per the recent amendment done to the DICGC Act. Again, something which was very clearly covered by us in our notes and classes on NBFCs. Next question related to a mutual fund, where you had to identify which type of mutual fund actually has tax benefit and has also a lock-in period of 3 years. A very simple question. The equity linked savings scheme, also known as ELSS, is the mutual fund that gives the tax benefit. For all others, you are liable for capital gains taxes if so made. Only for ELSS, it is a tax savings instrument to mutual funds at ixamBee. Next question related to matching of different pairs, which one was not correctly matched, and the combination related to the regulator and the particular sector which it was regulating. So telecom is regulated by TRI, insurance by IRDA, pension by PFRDA, IPOs or capital markets by SEBI. So the incorrect option here was mutual funds is not regulated by AMFI, it is regulated by SEBI. AMFI is actually the Association for Mutual Funds, which is a associated body of all the mutual funds, a voluntary associative body, and not the regulator. Again, this kind of discussions we have done in our classes on mutual funds. Then the next question related to a security that has been recognized for trading of gold on stock exchanges. So in security is known as EGR, which stands for electronic gold receipts. Okay, so EGR has been, and SEBI has already been talking about EGR from last year, when the last year budget actually talked about the setting up of gold spot stock exchange, and EGR were then. Why this question could have been asked? Because very recently in December, actually the government has amended the Securities and Contracts Regulation Act, under which all the securities are defined. So the securities are defined under Securities Contract Regulation Act, and EGR has been identified as one of the securities, right? So that is why I think this question could have come in the news. Again, we have done such discussions when we have our finance classes. We do a lot of discussions and how things are interrelated. So this is a class that I had taken on the financial intermediaries and various news in the financial market space, where we had clearly discussed concepts like social stock exchanges, gold stock exchange, EGR, and various other such topics. A conceptual and very easy question related to derivatives was asked, that the value of derivatives is based on which of the following. Very easy question. It is dependent on the value of the underlying assets, and that's exactly what the definition of actually derivatives is. And we have had a similar question. It is a very easy question. A similar question is also there in the practice questions of ixamBee. Which of the following is not a feature of debenture? Again, a very easy question. Debenture is a debt instrument, and the moment you know that, you know the correct answer is this, because it is not a part. We had asked which is not a feature. It is not a part of net owned funds. It is a part of the debt capital of a company and not the equity capital or the owned capital, right? So again, a lot of such discussions on various market instruments keeps happening, in which this was very easily identifiable, and I think all of the students have got this answer correct. Next question related to options, a very easy. So derivatives, actually there were 3 questions already from the derivatives topic only, but very easy questions. Third question related to options, where the moneyness concept was checked, that if the spot price is less than the strike price in case of a call option, whether will it be called in the money, out the money, out of the money, European option or American option. The correct answer is out of the money, because in a call option, if you can buy at a price lesser and the market, rather than through the option, you will choose not to exercise it. Basically you are saying it is out of the money. So this is again very well discussed in our classes. It is mentioned in our notes, and a same exact question we have also had in our practice test of finance. Same question on the opposite way. We had asked greater than, in the exam it was asked less than. Another question, general awareness or financial awareness related question, was on angel investors. What is the maximum number of angel investors that are allowed. Now angel investments have been in news because see recently in the December board meeting when SEBI had updated certain regulations related to our IPOs, that time they had also increased the limit of investment by AIF to 1 crore. So AIFs were mostly in news. However, this limit was not increased for angel investors, which continues to be 25 lakh. So angel invest funds and AIFs were in news recently, and maybe a question, that's why I was prompted on this aspect. The angel investors, what's the maximum number is allowed? So from the given options, the correct answer is 49. However, there has been a long time back an increase in this number, but that number has not been majorly being followed. Given the options, the correct answer would be 49. And this again discussion, when we were doing discussions on AIFs, we have tried to explain different types of AIF: category 1, category 2, category 3. And in category 1, when we are talking about what is the angel investments, it was very clearly discussed that there are 49 that are allowed, and in case of other AIFs, the maximum number is 1000. So again, discussions like this, fruitful informational conceptual discussions, we keep doing in our classes. Moving on to the costing segment. In costing, very easy questions were asked, and the majority of the questions from the lean systems. So few questions that were there definition based. First question was about imputed cost. What is the imputed cost? Also known as, actually imputed cost is also known as notional cost. In some cases, not always, in some cases it may also be referred to as an opportunity cost. Basically, imputed cost is those costs which do not involve any cash outlay. That's why they are notional cost. And as I said, in some cases they may also be similar to opportunity cost. We had the exact same question covered in our section test on costing. What is notional cost also referred to as? The switched question we had, which is they are known as imputed cost. Which of the following is an example of indirect cost? A lot of options were given. Some of the options included jute in gunny bags. So gunny bags are made out of jute. So jute is a direct material in gunny bags. Packing material, in many of the cases, packing material is actually a direct material because after production they are packed for delivery. Batteries in a transistor cannot work without a battery, so that will be considered as a direct cost. Stores in service canteen is something which you are using as an indirect cost, because this is not really being applied for any production of a particular product. Starch, some of the students have got confused with starch in dressing yarn. What is it? Actually, starch is actually used to increase the strength of a particular dressing yarn. Dressing yarn you can call as like the medical yarns or cloths that are used for medical purposes. So when starch is added to it, it increases its strength and its stretchiness, and therefore I think this will be a direct cost and not an indirect cost. So the closest option here is stores in the service canteen. Again, conceptual question about what direct costs are, what indirect costs are. This is a regular feature in our costing classes. There was another question, statement based, relating on budgeting. What is not correct about budgeting? There were a lot of statements given. One of the statements which students have pointed out was that the budgeting does not facilitate in management by exception. This is an incorrect statement. Why? Because budgeting basically helps in management by exception. What we mean by management by exception, and the management by exception is a concept in management. So if we understand that well, and if we try to correlate things and holistically look at it, this will be very easily identifiable. Why? Management by exception means that only when there are certain deviations from what you had planned, from what you had thought, only then the management will intervene. Otherwise, as per plan, if things are going, management does not need to intervene. So budgeting is actually facilitating that. Why? Because budgeting is what? It is planning, giving you a plan. So if you have a plan in place and everything is going on as per plan, then the management only needs to intervene when there is a deviation. So budgeting actually facilitates management by exception. So again, conceptual questions, certain points included in the notes in our classes on similar basis has been done. Now we move on to the questions related to lean systems that were there, around 5-6 questions from lean systems. One of the questions was under the 5S technique of lean system, which is not one of the S. The correct answer is support. The 5S actually includes sort, set in order, shine, standardize, and sustain. And there are Japanese equivalents for these words: siri, saiton, seiso, siketsu, and shitsuke. Exact same question has been asked by us in our mock test 3, question number 48, which you can also see, which is available for free on our website for practice. Same question we had asked, which is not one of the C's. We had used the word schedule instead of support. Next question relates to what is a wastage controlling technique, which means continuous improvement. Continuous improvement, the moment you see it, is Kaizen. Again, a question very well covered. Same question covered by us in the mock test. There are two methodologies under Six Sigma. One of them is DMAIC. What is the full form? All the letters were given and you had to identify which one is the not correct. The correct, basically the irony of the C which says correct was actually not correct. C stands for control in the DMAIC CI model. Exact same question in the form of complete full form that we had asked. What does DMAIC stand for? We had taken this question from our mock test. There was this question related to TPM, total productive maintenance, where plant maintenance, which of them is not included in plant maintenance? The correct answer is breakdown prevention. Many of the students have actually marked maintenance prevention as the answer, saying that maintenance prevention is nothing. However, maintenance prevention is very much a term. So PM, preventive maintenance, we call PM, and maintenance prevention we refer to as MP. So they are very much, both of them are correct terms. The only term which is not correct is breakdown prevention. What we mean by maintenance prevention is that when the machinery is brought in, right, that time you are installing it, servicing it in such a manner that the maintenance of it is not required very frequently. That is what we mean by maintenance prevention, that at the time of purchase, installation, and assembling it together, before we start using it, you make sure that it is installed in the best manner with all the right lubricants and attention that is required to delay routine maintenance. And preventive maintenance is actually routine maintenance that you have to do to prevent a lot of maintenance activity or breakdown maintenance coming into picture. So this is correct, and the correct option which is not a part is actually breakdown prevention, and it is very clearly mentioned in the notes under third stage of TPM. Plant maintenance actually includes 4 items: preventive maintenance, breakdown maintenance, corrective maintenance, and maintenance prevention. And this has been mentioned by ICAI also in their notes. So this is the correct. Only breakdown prevention is not the correct option. Next question related to which of them is not a characteristic of lean manufacturing. I think this was a very easy question. Push processing is never a part of lean manufacturing, because in that case what you are doing is you are making to stock manufacturing. So very easy question, direct question that had come. We have done a lot of such discussions in our live classes, what we mean by pull system, why it is not a push system. Here, the characteristics of playing pulls is establish a pull and not really a push. So these discussions we have done in our videos, in our live classes. Next question in costing, last question related to the Kanban. What is a Kanban card? A Kanban card is actually a visual representation of what work is done, what has to be done, what is in process, and to be able to analyze, because it helps to reduce wastages and being stuck at certain processes. So one of the statements which was not correct here was that the number of Kanban cards in progress are increased over time. No, it is not increased, because you would want the work to get completed and the Kanban cards that are available, which are visible on the Kanban board should be reducing and not increasing. So the correct answer is here, which is incorrect, is if they are not increasing over time, the aim is to reduce them over time. Again, we have done such discussions in our classes on lean systems when we were talking about just in time, how it is based on Kanban and pull strategy, and the aim is to eliminate all kind of waste and reduce the Kanban cards on the visual board. The next segment we have come to is the Companies Act. Companies Act was very direct, very factual, no section based questions, something everybody was scared of. There was no section based question, factual information only, and every question has been covered from our crisp notes on Companies Act. Question on the auditors, as I was saying, audit and section 139 is an important act. A question has been asked, when is the next appointment of an auditor done? It is done at the conclusion of the 6th AGM, and after that at the end of every 6th meeting AGM is basically when the auditor is appointed. As I said, all the questions from Companies Act were very well covered in our notes. You can see how crisply all the notes are presented for good reading, understanding and retention purpose. Otherwise, Companies Act can get very, very lengthy and boring to read. The question related to the voting rights for the shareholders is in proportion to which kind of equity share capital? It is the paid up equity share capital, very directly mentioned under section 47 and very nicely covered by us in our notes. To avoid any kind of confusion, for equity shares there are voting rights in the proportion of paid up equity capital. For differential voting rights, they are there as per what the DVRs are, but in any case they should not exceed 74% of the total voting rights. And then the preference shares, they will have voting rights only in cases of resolutions which affect them, but they can have in all the matters if they have if the company has not paid dividend for the last 2 years. So very crisply mentioned in a small image for you to remember. Next question related to the quorum of the board. This question was also asked in PFRDA exam. We have given similarly like this, that we have prepared the memory based paper for SEBI. We had prepared similarly the PFRDA memory based paper for both phase 1 and phase 2, and we had advised all our students to go through those because they had the same syllabus as SEBI, in addition to also covering the pension sector. So we had provided them for the practice, and the same exact question was asked in the PFRDA exam. So all those students who had practiced that were able to actually see it from the notes also, but they were also able to see it in the PFRDA exam. So here is the notes that was mentioning this, and here is the PFRDA. You can see PFRDA mock test where this exact same question was asked. Next question related to any variation if you do in the prospectus, then it has to be approved by whom. So it has to be approved by the shareholders in the general meeting, but through a special resolution. This is mentioned under section 27. A question related, not the same question, but a section based question on section 27 was actually asked in PFRDA phase 1. So if students had attempted that, while reading that in the explanation, they would have also read this. Of course, in addition to our coverage in the notes, where very clearly in the notes on prospectus we had mentioned that you have to make any changes in the general meeting after passing through a special resolution. Then in case the dividend is unpaid, then what is the penalty for the defaulting directors? The answer is 1000 per day, and for the company it is that you have to pay interest at 18% per annum. Again, in the notes it was very clearly mentioned. The next question in Companies Act related to NCLT president. Who is eligible to become a president for NCLT? He should have an experience as a judge for the High Court for at least how many years? The correct answer is 5 years. Something very well covered in our notes, and also a same question we had asked. So very nicely we present all the boring information of Companies Act for easy revision and good understanding. Less than how many years may contribute directly or indirectly to political parties? The correct answer is 3 years. This was also covered in our notes, and exact same question was given in the revision MCQs given by us for Companies Act before the exam. Same question was given. Next question related to Companies Act, the directors. So one of the directors should have stayed in India for not less than how many days in a financial year? The correct answer is 182, which is mentioned under section 149 of the Companies Act. This was also covered in our notes on directors under the numbers of directors and the that every company should have the director. Moving to the last segment of the questions, the economics part. Economics part was easy to a little less expected topics that were asked. The easy question was on monetary policy. A very easy question on monetary policy was asked related to CRR. What is the rate of interest that is given on CRR by RBI? The answer is no interest is given on CRR. Okay, so monetary policy notes, our classes very clearly cover this CRR. Their banks does not earn any interest on CRR. And equilibrium, the only numerical that came in the paper was related to the equilibrium quantity and price for demand and supply. You were given the equations for demand and for supply, and you had to find the equilibrium quantity and price. Very easy mathematics question. This was one, we can't say this is economics question, this is a mathematics question. You just had to equate it and solve the equation for P and Q. The answer here is quantity of 9 and price of 3. Same question, not same question, the values were different, but similar kind of question we have covered in our notes to explain how equilibrium is is arrived. There are 3 methods you can do it: diagrammatically, algebraically, or through market equations. So all 3 concepts and ways of calculating equilibrium of demand and supply was studied, and similar kind of question has actually been solved in our notes also. Next question was an indirect way of asking the relationship between GDP and GNP. So we all know that GDP and GNP are related with the help of net factor income from abroad. So when we add GDP and net factor income from abroad, we get GNP. So this question was asked indirectly by giving certain values, and the difference, why has it come, was asked. So this was because net factor income from abroad is positive, because of which when we add it to GDP, we get GNP. So just that they have placed values to GDP and GNP, the concept remains the same. So if a person understands the concept, they will very easily be able to get this answer. So here again, in a very table format, we have provided the relationship between GNP, GDP, NDP, NDP at factor cost and market prices. Next question related to when a producer bears the cost of tax, what is the impact of elasticity and demand? So basically we are asking the incidence of tax. The topic is incidence, inelastic supply and elastic demand, because if the demand is elastic, what we mean by elastic demand is that a change in price will change the quantity that is being demanded, right? So if the cost of tax is going up, and because of which the producer increases the price, the quantity demanded will fall, which will lead to a loss for the producer, and therefore he will decide to bear the cost of the tax on his own. That's why elastic demand, in case of elastic demand, the incidence of tax falls on the producer or the seller and not the buyer. And similarly, in case of inelastic supply, if the supply is inelastic, then it does not make a difference whether the supply will change or not, then the producer will bear the cost. So this incidence of taxation has been explained in the notes very clearly, where the supplier and borrower will bear, a producer will bear the cost, and in which case the consumer will bear the cost. Next question related to a conceptual theoretical understanding of balance of payments. There are two components of balance of payments, the current account and the capital account. So mathematically or from an accounting point of view, when there is a current account surplus, it is equated by a deficit in the capital account and vice versa. So very simple concept, theoretical concept asked on balance of payments. Next question related to the LM curve. There were a few statements given related to the LM curve and the shifting of the LM curve and what was correct, which was incorrect. So the incorrect statement was related to the elasticity in relation to the rate of interest. So basically, in the lower the elasticity in relation to the rate of interest, the steeper the LM curve is. So this again was mentioned in our notes very clearly. What are the characteristics of LM curve, where the LM curve shifts, all is been very nicely explained in our notes and videos. The last question related to oligopoly. A lot of students have actually mentioned that it was Cornet model of oligopoly, but actually there were few statements related to Cornet model and few statements which were generic to oligopoly and the cartelization concept. So a few statements which were there. One of the statements which I think was incorrect, it may not be the exact same statements. These are the best memory based statements that we have been able to reproduce, but the most likely statement that was incorrect was related to non-cooperativeness seen in the oligopolistic market where a cartel is there. This should be an incorrect statement, because the oligopoly actually works on cooperation of a cartel. If actually there is no cooperation in the cartel and they all start behaving in their own manner, then it will lead to a breakdown of the cartel, and then they will cease to earn the profits, the monopoly profits as a cartel together. So cooperation of the cartel, of the members in an oligopoly, is very essential for an oligopoly to exist. So in my understanding, that should be an incorrect statement. However, as I said, this is a memory based paper. The exact statements may be a little different from what has been presented here. So this is all. So this is all the question wise discussion, detailed discussion. As I said, this PDF is available for download. You can download it from our description box very easily and refer to it for your preparation for phase 2. For phase 2, all of our faculty is ready to guide you for paper 1, which is descriptive English. Dr. Sharma, he was ex-CGM RBI, and he has done his PhD in English from IIT Kanpur. Arunima ma'am, who is an ex-manager SEBI and been guiding for English for various competitive exams from the last 10 years, and Manali ma'am, an English expert who will be guiding you for descriptive English, and of course our existing expert faculty who's been guiding you since phase 1 for the general stream, for the legal stream, for the research stream, for IT, and for Raj Bhasha. We will be starting our classes for the preparation of phase 2 very soon from Wednesday itself. The exam is on 20th of March, and with this answer key detailed one, you all know whether you are in or not. There is no merit based list that is prepared. All you need is 30% in paper 1, 40% in paper 2, and 40% in aggregate. So if you are crossing that, you are going to phase 2. So please don't wait for the results to start your preparation. The syllabus is same. All you need to do is revise, practice, and strengthen your concepts in these 30 days to the phase 2. So wishing you all the best. We are also running a flat 50% off on our phase 2 courses. If you need guidance for preparation for phase 2, you can avail the benefit of this offer. Thank you everybody. All the best. Wishing you all the best. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I will be coming up with a detailed plan for preparation of phase 2 and the learnings for phase 2 from the phase 1 paper. So stay tuned. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel.